It was a cold Thursday morning when they walked into my life. And out of all the trick-taking review joints in town, they had to stumble into mine. But yeah, I took on the case. Because hey, this is Taylor's trick-taking table and I'm Detective Table. That's right, they came into my life and I took the case, I tell you. I took the case. What were the cases, mind you? What were the hooks for these games? Well, before I tell you that one, I gotta say grain of salt. I was provided both of these games, so take everything I say with a grain of salt. But back to what I was saying. The hooks for these games, well, this one, Rotisserie Tricken by Mr. Ben. The premise is, it's a micro game. There's only 9 cards in the deck, and it's only for 3 players. Every player gets 3 of those 9 cards. So you're only going to play 3 tricks. Predict on how many tricks you think you're going to win. Predict right, a lot of points. Predict wrong, probably not that many points. But each card is broken up into 4 different types of seasoning. But really what that means is just each card can be 4 different things, and that is just 4 different ways to play the game. So even though there's 9 cards in here, it's actually like 36, because there's 4 different types on each card. We'll go to the table and we'll explain Rotisserie Tricken and... Oh no! I got hot ash on my foot. And MovieTricks. This was also sent to me, but the designers, Vigard, Elassian, Stillerud, Elif, Svensson, and Asmund Svensson. I'm so sorry for everything I say. They're the designers, and the hook to this one is, it is like a trick-taking with strong draft and auction mechanics. So you're going to play cards into the trick, you're going to rank them, so it's like highest of the trump suit, then highest of the lead suit, then highest offsuit, and then in that order you're going to draft cards. And those are going to be parts of a movie, like soundtrack or characters, roles, I think, or props or CGI. And you're going to be making movies, and you're going to score in like 6 or so different ways. And then the cards that you play are then part of the draft for the next round of the trick, round of the hand, where you're going to be drafting the cards that you just played. They're going to go into the market. So that's the hook on this one, kind of like an auction draft. Let's go to the table because I think I have a lot of secondhand smoke from filming this intro. Thanks so much, and I'll catch y'all at the table. The deck in MovieTricks is 4 suits, numbered 1 through 10, but in the deck there's sometimes multiple copies of a card, and also, depending on the player count you're using, you're going to remove certain cards. Like at 3 player, you're actually going to remove all of the cards with this blue color to the quote text on the bottom, whereas all the other ones have like a black color to the quote text on the bottom. Here we have the game set up for 3 players. There's a few things before we go into the setup and the full teach. 2 player is a little different. I'll cover that at the end. And also there's actually like a family kind of less complex variant that I'll also chat a little bit on at the end. But for now, this is going to be a 3-player game and with the normal standard rules. So, depending on the player count, you're going to set up the deck, like we removed the blue quote cards, and then you're going to shuffle, and at 3, you're dealing 13 cards each player. There's going to be 1 cut, and we put that off to the side. And then, no matter the player count, you're actually going to give every player 4 each of these cards, which are different aspects of making a movie. So, well, not all movies, I guess, but CGI, props, roles, and a soundtrack. And so players are going to set them up in front of them. This is where they're going to be putting the cards that they draft and making movies. Each player has their own set, and then you are going to set up the trump suit tracker up there, and you're going to put the marker next to it. That'll dictate what the trump suit is. You're going to shuffle the bonus cards, and depending on the player count, you might remove some, but that's essentially like the timer for the game. Once that's out, we'll be done. You're going to deal 2 face up at 3 players, and then you're going to have all the prop set scoring cards over there. I'll also explain those later. And then finally, depending on the player count, you're going to get these green start cards, which are double-sided. You're going to shuffle them, kind of flip them around, and you're going to put 1 out for each player, and then take the rest and just take them out of the game. So now we have Almost finally set up a 3-player game. Finally, each player is going to roll this dice, and whoever rolls the highest is going to be the lead player into the first trick, and they'll take this director pawn. So let's say it was this left player here. Oh, we're back. I forgot all the players. Geez, this wouldn't be a Taylor's trick-taking table without it. So yes, the remote player will now lead into the first trick. So it is a must-follow game, and highest of the lead suit will win. So let's say this player starts off with a 10 in red. So coming to the sunglasses player, they have to play a red. Maybe they decide to play 2. And then next comes to the camera player, and let's say they just play a 3. So then whoever won the trick is going to take the director pawn. This player won it and they already had it, so they'll just keep it. And then you're going to go down from strongest to weakest, and the players are going to draft cards. So strongest to weakest is starting in lead suit, and then once we have a trump suit, it'd be the highest trump suit, then lead suit, and then off suit, highest and lowest. If it's ever a tie for the rank or tie for strength, it's just the first played. So now the remote control player, since they play the strongest, is going to draft. Maybe they take this 3, because it has 3 of these CGI bang kind of symbols on it. Those are worth 2 points each, which is awesome. So this is 6 points at least. So let's say they take that. You're going to always put it on the corresponding category. So it was a CGI card, they'll put it on the CGI category. And then now we just like to tap it if someone has already drafted, but you know, it's sometimes pretty clear. It will go to this player over here. They played the 3, so they're going to draft. Maybe they take this 8 escape. This has 1 of the soundtracks on it, and so it'll go in the soundtrack section because it has the soundtrack label. And then finally, the sunglass player gets the last card, which is a rolls character. So then the cards that players play are going to go into the market for the next round. But before we go into the next trick, the player who played the weakest is going to take a bonus card. And they can do one of 3 things with it. They can take it into their hand, they can take it and put it into the correct corresponding row, or they can just take it and throw it out of the game. If a player takes it either into their tableau or into their hand, the card that they choose is actually going to become the trump suit. So let's say this player here really wanted more soundtrack, so they take this to yellow, they're going to add it to their soundtrack, and so now that is going to make yellow the trump suit for the next trick. If they chose to just discard it, then they can choose any suit to be the trump suit for the next trick. But that is what they did. They could have also put it into their hand, so they would have had 1 more card than everyone else. But that is what they did. And so then this flips out, so that'll be for the next round. And then it's 1 trick done, and now we're going back to the director. Jumping ahead to the end of the next trick, maybe it was lead red again, and then this player wins. They would take the director pawn and then start drafting first. You know, maybe they take this 10 to get more rolls. And flow like this is going to continue. At the end of that trick, the weakest player drafted the blue 2, and they actually decided to put it into their hand. So now they have an extra card. And since they picked the blue, now blue suit is trump for the next round. So out came one of the other things in the deck, and usually it's just suited cards, but sometimes in the deck there's these +3s, and what those are is if you draft one of those and you put it into your hand, maybe next time when you're playing into the trick, you can add it to a card and it'll +3 to any card. That's why it's rainbow. So this is now 7 red, and then after that trick you would just discard this out of the game. Jumping ahead to a future trick, maybe it was lead red. It comes to this player here. They have this red where they can play, and maybe they add this to it, so now they are winning because it's 8 to 7. But coming to the sunglasses player, they could either play off suit and play the lowest, so then that would let them mess with the bonus and possibly change trump, but maybe they really want to win the trick, so they're actually going to play into the trump suit. So now how the ranking goes is highest the trump suit, so they're going to draft first. Maybe they draft this rolls card into their rolls section, and then it's going to be highest of the lead suit, so it'd be this player, then this player. And so flow like that is going to continue until we go to scoring, but I should say there is one special thing that happens as you play the trick play. The props card is special because you actually choose what your score is going to get as you play the trick taking, and you can only do it once, and it's when you draft a props card. So looking at the props card specifically here, as you can see, it says 1 time you can do this. When placing a props card, you draft one of these cards, and that right there is a symbol for all those up there. So let's say the sunglasses player decides to draft this 4, and they put it into their area here. When they draft it, that moment is when they choose if they want a prop card or not. And again, this is just a one-time thing. So if they draft a prop card later, they can't get a higher scoring star. So how it works is you're going to look at all the suits that you've collected. And looking closer at the sunglasses player, they fittingly, they've gotten a sunglasses and then the handcuffs and the phone. So they have 3 different props. How the props work is you want as many different as possible. In fact, the lowest you can have is the 3 different ones here. So as you can see, this has 3 different props, and that's going to score them 4 points. But if they waited, so when they place this down, they decide not to take a props card, and maybe next time when they draft, they maybe, could draft this here, it comes down, and notice they already have the sunglasses, so that's not a unique one. But if they have a key, that's now 4 unique, then when they place that, they can take this one here. And so they went from 4 points to now 7 points because they had more. There's 10 total. As you can see, there's 10 different, and that one is worth a whopping 46 points. That is definitely a lot. But in addition to the limitation of only drafting one, so let's say, this player decides to take that, that is their prop card for the rest of the game. Anytime they draft another one, they can't upgrade or do anything. But interestingly enough, the prop cards themselves are mutually exclusive. So if this player takes the 4 different one, no one else can take it. So if this player was going for the 4 different one, they're like, I try to shoot for the 3 or try to shoot for the 5 because that 4 was already taken. So now with the props, scoring, and the mid kind of hand explanation of that out of the way, let's jump to the end and show how final scoring will work for all of these categories. Zooming in on one player here, we're just going to have this be a good example of how to score, and I'll show all the edge cases here. So we have the score pad here for the game, and how it works is, you're going to write on all the names. Let's say this is tables. And the first thing to score is your best movie, the max across all of those rows. So if it's incomplete, it doesn't count. Notice how this player down here only had 2 cards in this column, so they don't have 3 complete movies. A complete movie is a full column. And you have the names being made kind of like almost like Mad Libs or kind of random style, which is fun. So like this person's first movie is Samurai Vendetta Unseen Agenda. And then their second movie is Infernal Fairy Tale Legendary Code. So sadly, they don't have 3 movies, even though Rebel Dangerous Escape does sound fun. So they're just going to count up across for these 2 movies, and whichever is the highest is how many points they'll get. So this bottom one is 4 plus 7 plus 2. That is 13, whereas this top one is 19. So they're going to get 19 points for their best movie. Next is their smallest in a column. So you're going to count down and see what their smallest is. This is 12. This one over here is 14. But this one's over here 6, and that is their weakest. So they didn't do too well in the props department. Next is the CGI. So how CGI works is you're going to get 2 points for every CGI symbol. So they have 3, so that's 6. And then you're going to actually get the value of the last place card, which is 4. If they had swapped this, if the 8 was on the bottom, they would have actually gotten 8 points for that last place card. But that's, obviously draft order is important. They got 4. So that'd be 6 plus 4 is 10. So then that is 10 for that. So now props, how prop score is, again, if they drafted, they would get that many points. They could have been shut out, like near the end of the game. Maybe they were pushing their luck and they drafted this, but someone had taken this before and then they never got a chance to take another props card. There could be, in trouble, so they don't get any. But they did. They had 6 unique symbols. Notice how the key is an overlap, so it's just 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. So that is worth 16 points. You're going to write that on there. Roles. How roles work is you're going to count up the number of actors and actresses that you have on your score. You're going to get that many. This player had 5, so they would get 10 points. And then what you want to do is you want to balance them. So if you do, you actually get another 8 points. So this player had 4 actresses and 1 actress. They didn't balance, so they're just going to get that 10 points. So that goes there into roles. And then finally, how soundtrack works is it's actually comparative. So you're going to compare how you did to the other players. And if you got the most or tied for the most, you're going to get 18. If you got the fewest or tied for the fewest, you get 0. Otherwise, in the middle, you're going to get 12. So this player here, they got 1, 2, 3, 4. Maybe that was in the middle, and then that would be 12 points. You're going to sum that all up. You're going to have a final score. You're going to compare it to the other players, and whoever has the most wins. Woo! And that is how to play MovieTricks. How to play at 2-player, I'm just going to show a couple quick differences. There's also little minutia, but I won't cover those. The big differences is there's 5 cards in the market always, and each player is actually going to play 2 cards into the trick for each trick. So coming to the sunglasses player, looking at their hand here, maybe they decide to lead a yellow, and so the lead suit is yellow. Coming to the camera,
they have to play a yellow, maybe they play the 10, but then the sunglasses player is then going to play another yellow. They only have one, but then going back to the camera, they're going to play a yellow. So you actually play 2 each. You're going to find out who won out of those cards, and it doesn't matter which one of the cards you play, you're just always going to take it. So they played the highest lead suit, so the camera's going to take the director pawn, but then you're going to draft in order. So it'll go camera, then it's going to go sunglasses, sunglasses, then it'll finish with the camera because they played the lowest, and then the camera is going to be the one to do the bonus card stuff. So it's interesting that they not only won, but they also got the bonus card stuff. So maybe the camera drafts those 2, and sunglasses drafts these. The remaining card is going to stay in the market, and then you're going to add those 4 cards played back up there. So you're always going to have 5. I should say that after the deal, there's actually extra cards that form a draw deck, and then after every trick, players are going to draw up a card each back into their hand. Those are most of the changes. There's other small little things, but I should say the last special thing, because someone might be wondering, is in the game, there is the soundtrack scoring. And at 2 players, how would that work? Well, it's still most, fewest, and other, but you actually use the die here to roll and have a dummy player that acts as having another person to compare for the soundtrack. So you would roll it, and that's the number of soundtrack symbols the dummy player would have. So if the sunglass player had 6, this player over here had 11, then sunglasses would get 0. The dummy player, kind of got in the way and would get 12, even though they're not really a player. And then the camera would get 18. And the final other thing, and that is also important at 2, is when someone goes to take a prop card, the first player who takes a prop card, maybe they take this 5 here, the die will then be rolled, and whatever number this is, you're also going to remove that from the offer over here. So like I rolled a 6, so this 6 would actually get removed. So another way to add kind of a little bit more interaction, or a little bit more of like competition at 2-player. And that is how to play 2-player. And like I said, there is a family variant in the back, and how it works is super simplified scoring. So essentially you just get 2 points for every symbol. So CGI, props, rolls, all of that, just 2 points flat. And then you get points for all completed movies. So the goal in the family variant is just to get a lot of symbols, but also importantly 2 complete movies. And that is fully how to play MovieTricks. The deck in Rotisserie Tricken is a little interesting in that it's 9 cards, but each card has 4 different values on it. So looking at it here, you have like a 3 of hearts on the blue, and then 8 of clubs over here, and then if you spin it, you have the 4 of diamonds and the 7 of hearts. So each card can kind of be 4 different things, which will make more sense when I teach the game. Here's a game of Rotisserie Tricken set up for the only 3 players. So each player is going to get a bid card and 2 meeples. One of them is going to go near their bid card because they're going to use it to bid. And then also they're going to get another meeple, and that's going to go on the bottom of the score track. The score track is just going to be laid out like this from 0 up to 11. Near the score track, you're going to take the 3 suit cards, shuffle them, and put them in random order right here. That's the strength of the suits, with the higher up being stronger. So currently, hearts beats diamonds beats clubs. And then you're going to get the seasoning, and the top one closest to the score track is what is going to be the current seasoning. You're going to set it on the classic flavor, the blue with the salt. Next, each player is going to get 3 cards. You're going to shuffle and deal those 9 cards, 3 cards each to each of the players. It is a micro game, so everyone's hand is literally 3 cards. But on the cards is a variety of things, as you can see. So depending on what type of game you're playing, in this very first hand, it is going to be the salt classic flavor. You're going to orient your cards, and you're going to display them or flip them depending on what you're playing. So since it's the blue salt, the classic flavor, it's going to be like this. So this player down here, the purple, got dealt these 3 cards, the chicken, the 5 of clubs, and the 9 of diamonds. If maybe later on you'll see it could swap to the green, or maybe even, I think that's a garlic, the yellow, players will then change to what it is. So if it was green, they'd display it this way. If it was yellow, they'd rotate and display it this way. I think you get the idea. So it starts off on blue. The start player is any player. Let's say it's this purple hedgehog pin player. They're going to take the yellow lead disc token. After it is all set up, players are going to be looking at their cards, make sure it's oriented the correct way, and then simultaneously, when everyone's ready, you are going to reveal what you think your bid is going to be. You can do like a 1, 2, 3 or something, or you could like point. That's what we do. So it's like 1, 2, 3. So this player is looking at their hand here, and they have a chicken, and chicken is like the strongest thing in the game. So maybe they think they're going to take definitely at least 1 trick, and maybe they're going to try to finagle to take another one. So they're thinking 2. So players are going to go 1, 2, 3, and this player would go 2. And what you're going to do is you can put your little meeple on where you're going, or you also want to orient where what bid you're doing, where it's going to be on the top. So like, let's say, looking at the green player's hand over here, they only think they're going to take one trick. They would go 1, 2, 3. And if they're sitting like this, they would put, the frog point of view, they put the 1 on top, and they can, again, also just put the meatball. And then this player over here has a really low hand. They're going to go to 0. And although I revealed that in order, that was all simultaneous. So then the lead player is just going to lead off. So let's say that this player leads with the 5 of clubs. It is a must-follow game, so coming to the frog here, they would have to play this 3 of clubs. They also have the star, which is a wild suit, which they could play instead because it's considered of the lead suit. So if they played that, they would be playing the same number, a 5 and a 5. And in that case, if multiple 5s were played, the later one played would win. So this would be winning. But this player isn't sure if they want this trick. Maybe they were trying to try to win it with a 9 later. They're going to just play the 3. So then coming to the Phoenix player up here, they can play whatever they want because they don't have to follow suit. And they are a little upset because they only have diamond, heart, and another heart. And as you can see, clubs is actually the weakest of the suits. So maybe they just decide to play the 3 diamonds. So now that everyone's played a card to the trick, you're going to see who wins. So it's highest of the lead suit if everyone plays on suit or if they play a wild as well. And again, those 5s, if they're both in there, it's a later played 5. But if there's multiple different suits, like what happened here, where the orange player played a diamond, then you're going to see what the strongest suit is, and it's going to be the highest ranked card in that suit. So as you can see, diamonds is actually stronger than clubs, so the diamonds player is going to win. They're going to collect that trick and lead to the next trick, but before they do, they're going to move any card whose suit had won, you're going to move it down. So since the diamonds suit won the trick, it is actually going to be moved below. It always is moved to the bottom. It's going to be moved to below clubs. So if hearts wins, let's say in a fantasy trick, if hearts won, it would go like this. It would move all the way to the bottom. But that is not what happened. So now the orange player is going to lead into the trick, and maybe they're just like, okay, whatever. And they just play the 3 of hearts. So it is must follow. So this player over here doesn't have a 3 of hearts. They can play a chicken, which is the strongest, or they could play the 9 of diamonds. So let's say they play the chicken. It is must follow, so this player over here, they do have the wild. So they could play it as a 5 of hearts or as a 9 of hearts. They really want a trick, and so maybe they keep the wild just to maybe try to play a card of the suit later on. So chicken will win because it's the strongest card in the game. If there were 2 of them in the trick, it's the last highest played one that wins. And what it does is chicken counts as the highest of the highest, strongest suit. So when this chicken wins, it's actually going to do what we just chatted about, where it's going to move the heart. It always moves the highest suit down to the bottom. So now hearts is on the bottom. This player is going to win the trick, and then they're going to lead to the last trick. They led a 9 of diamonds. So then players play out their cards, a 5 of stars and a 1 of hearts. So no one had any clubs, and hearts is now weaker than diamonds, and this was a 5 of diamonds, but this is a 9 of diamonds, so then the purple player wins this trick. So they won 2. So how scoring works is players are going to get 1 point per trick, except if they hit their bid, then they're going to double the number of points for tricks they won in that round. So this player would have gotten 2 points, but since they bid 2, they actually get 4. So the purple player jumps up to the 4. Over here, the orange player, they bid 0, so they didn't hit their bid, but they did get 1 point because they got 1 trick. So orange player is going to jump up. And then this player didn't get any tricks, didn't hit the bid, so they don't move at all. If it looked like this, where the green player took a trick, they would actually have gotten 2. But what's interesting is now that would have let the orange player hit their bid at 0. If you hit your bid at 0, you get 4 points. So then it would have looked like this. Also important note that I just remembered the diamond did win that trick, so it would move like that for the next round, which is if no one has exceeded 10, you are going to play another round. So you're going to collect the 9 cards, you're going to shuffle and deal 3 to each player. Now that we're after the first round, this can actually now change. So you're going to see if there's a player alone in last place, and they are going to look at their hands and choose whether they want to turn or not the seasoning. So they can turn it either clockwise or counterclockwise from where it's at. So since it's at blue, they can't change it to yellow, but they can change it to either orange or green. And maybe they do that for whatever their bid wants to be. So they're looking at their orange. It's like that kind of okay, not the best, not the worst, but maybe they could turn it to green. They're looking at the green and they know, wow, guaranteed kind of win, guaranteed kind of lose, because I haven't explained this, but this is essentially like a I pass, like I'm out of it, I lose. And then this is a 2, so maybe they could wait for that to work. So maybe they want to change it to green because that's the clearest for their bid. So now all players will make sure to be splaying correctly their cards and understand where they're at. And then again, the whole flow will continue. You're going to bid, score after getting tricks, see how much you get, and if anyone goes over 10 or not, you win. If multiple players go over 10 at the same time, you're actually going to keep going until someone has a unique score, and then that will lead to a winner. If folks are tied at the bottom, like let's say it looks like that, and there's no sole person at the bottom to choose what you want to do with the seasoning, everyone's going to count down 3, 2, 1 and point either left or right, and the majority direction is going to determine which way it rotates. Pretty wild. So if these two players go this and this player goes that, it's actually going to rotate over to that direction. So that's how to play the basic part of the game. And how the expert works, how the expert variant, is you're actually going to start using the symbols on the cards here. Technically, this was supposed to be flipped for the basic variant, so it wasn't confusing. But we like seeing the fun art, so we will sometimes play like this. But in the expert variant, these symbols actually matter. So let me show it off as I hold it here. There we go. That wasn't quite zooming. But how it works is when players start a round, their meeple might be on a certain spot. And notice how each spot has its own seasoning flavor. Well, depending on where your meeple is at, is actually what you are forced to have your cards at. So as you can see here, this is on that green kind of leaf seasoning. If I was the orange player, I would play with this. But if I was purple and I was down here, I wouldn't be playing on the green with the orange. I'd actually be playing on the orange suit. So I'd be on a different set of cards than another player. I know I said orange twice there, but I hope that makes sense. Essentially, you are just playing on whatever kind of seasoning your meeple score is at, and that will change as you score and as you move up the track. And that's how to play Rotisserie Tricken. So that is MovieTricks and Rotisserie Tricken. And before I cover these games, huge grain of, hope this works, salt, because I was provided both these games from the publishers, and specifically with Travel Games UK, Mr. Ben is a pal and has generously donated games, and we've done giveaways thanks to Mr. Ben Pass. And so in addition to passing these along, Mr. Ben is also a pal, so huge grain of salt. That said, let's dive in. Let's start with Rotisserie Tricken. It is it's a micro game essentially, and I get a lot of whiffs, because it's chicken, of Bust or Nothing. So you have like the moving kind of ranking system, and then you have the bidding and kind of moving up to try to hit stuff. But you also have like those X cards, which lets you just like kind of slough. And so I get tastes of it. But not only is this such a fascinating game of like, you know, a micro deck, but also the scoring is tight. The card options are still there, especially because again, like you can hit your bid, but incentivizes different bids. Like, because since you get, if you hit your bid, 2 points per trick, you kind of want to bid 2 over 1, right? So sometimes you kind of try to overextend. And then with the shooting the moon or taking no tricks scoring of 4 as well, that's kind of also equal to 2. So then you get, I mean, we talked about Lunatrix, where in that one you wanted 1 or 5 tricks and not 3. Similar thing here, you're kind of pushing yourself maybe to go to the extremes. So either take none or take 2 or maybe even 3. That'd be awesome, because that would be 6 points. And that middle ground of 1, which is the average, right? Because there's 3 tricks, 3 players, is not incentivized score-wise. So I think it's great. The graphic design also, I mean, I don't know if every game is in a box full of chickens. This is probably one of the wildest productions I've gotten, which is wild in an amazing way, wildly good. But yeah, the art by Anu Kim, so good. I love that the aesthetic of kind of this like southern kind of KFC vibe. But the options are nice. I think when you look at your hand, you know that the suits might shift. So even if you have low, you might still take a trick. So you have to kind of be prepared for that if you're going to shoot the moon. Chickens are, you know, very strong, but there's sometimes multiple of them. I think what I would recommend is play it a good amount to understand the deck before you play the expert variant, because there's interesting subtleties to it. So the original flavor, right? There's no X's and there's only 1 chicken, and then the rest are like mostly suits. There's a wild card. But then once you get into green, has a free pass and then 2 chickens. Yellow has 2 passes, no chickens, and then orange has pretty much just all suits. So I think what's nice about the intro game is kind of you kind of get a sense of what's on these cards.
But then once you're really good at the game, you can be like, oh, okay, if we go to orange, it's like more standard trick taking. If we go to blue, it's like a little bit of wackiness. Yellow can be like a really good avoidance game because someone can get 2 of those X's. So there's some fun nuance there. And a long, long time ago, it sounds like a song or a Star Wars intro. I asked on BGG a long time ago the smallest deck in a trick-taking game that was still, interesting, I guess, because I've seen some people have like a 2-card deck or a 3-card deck that's like win, lose, banana. That wasn't the most interesting. But some in the past have been like catchy. I think that's like 16 or 17 or so. But 12-chip chick, which is great as well. But like, what can you do with like so few cards? Well, I think we are hitting the new reign of small deck trick-taking amazingness is Rotisserie Tricken. Like what they can do with a 9-card deck is fascinating. So all this praise is to say it is a very small game, quick game, slight game. Again, your hand is 3 cards. So, there's not much play. Like I remember I was talking to someone about in Fellowship of the Ring, trick-taking game, like sometimes you get goals where like 2 tricks have to go to this person, 1 has to go to this person, like 3 have to go to that person, and there's like not that much slack, if that makes sense. Like you have like 1 trick of like slack, but really things have to really work out. That's what it feels like here. There's like not really slack. So if you like that in your trick-taking games, like, like hearts or something, like you have like tricks that are just like, oh yeah, I'll lead a diamond, some takes with a diamond. Like it's like you get some like room to breathe. That is not here, and that does make sense because again, you have 3 cards. It's kind of everything jam-packed into one. So yeah, Travel Games UK. I mean, they already had the werewolf trick-taking. Oh, I'm so bad at the title on that one. But the werewolf trick-taking game that was also kind of like a micro game. So they're just like, they're killing these compact micro, but still filled with interesting decision type games. So that is Rotisserie Tricken. Again, huge grain of salt, and it is very micro. So although it's a good time, like you are playing 3 tricks. so keep that in mind. So all this is with that in mind. Now we're on to MovieTricks. So I was super excited for this one. I think maybe I mentioned at the top, maybe not. But I'm a film minor. In college. So I was very excited for this, trick-taking and movies. And there is, before I go into like the gameplay and everything, there is like a really fun vibe and like sense of the theme here, where the cards have the quotes on them, and as you, this is a wonderful part of the game, is as you're making movies, you build the titles, right? So it's like Casino, it's Casino Wonderland, The Cursed Hunt or something. Like you come up with your own movies that are like this Mad Lib stuff, which have like a fun humor and like a levity that is actually in the middle of the hand of trick taking. And I'm getting more into the gameplay, but like I like that the theme has like a little bit of whimsy built into and even in the middle of the game. So production wise, MovieTricks is really rad. And also like the fact that there's like a little director meeple as the lead player is really slick. And also it is just fun to, again, this is maybe just me, I think most people like movies, just to look at your hand or see what comes out and see the quotes. There are a lot of good quotes. Yeah. So onto the gameplay. Oh, I will say real quick about like the graphic design. I do wish there was like symbols underneath. Some of these were hard for folks I was playing with to see. I think it's not the worst just because they picked colors that are mostly disparate, but there's space for a suit symbol, and then I think would have helped. But on to the gameplay. Interesting, a lot going on. It is kind of kitchen sinky. So I know people joke that like all trick-taking games are auctions. It's a classic bit. This is definitely more auction. Like if I had like a not an auction trick taker to an auction trick taker, this is like here. Because, you are playing to draft, and then those go in as your draft, and that's like kind of the whole flow is just like draft. And so much of what you're playing and considering is because of that draft and that auction. Like the auction vibes here are huge, which makes sense. That's kind of what it's going for. But just to say, some games like Brian Baru or like Arcs or something, they'll have trick taking in it and like another mechanism or such. I would almost say this is like a trick taking or like auction with a trick taking mechanic.
compared to like a trick-taking game. There's still some trick-taking stuff too. Like if someone's out of a suit, you're like, okay, yeah, got that. Or like if you have a high card of a suit, you're like, okay, nice. But most of the time I would look at the card and be like, okay, this is a higher number. Like this might let me win. And like in general, especially because the trump jumps around every trick, your hand strength kind of also is very flexible and fluid. So there's a lot of moving parts. So the trick taking is fine, but it's definitely a system for the drafting and the scoring. So getting to the drafting and scoring, it's fun to have like all different stuff you're going for. Like I think they all feel different. One of them's like a comparative thing. One of them's like a balancing thing. One of them is a race, and then the last one is I think CGI is more of like you just kind of want a lot of symbols, but also like your last card is the rank. So that's like a fun thing. Mix that with you're doing row, you're doing column stuff, and then also you're kind of blocking people. I'll say that for the first any number of games I've played so far, it's hard to really focus on everything in someone's tableau that you're trying to like hate draft or like watch for. It's usually just like the soundtrack. That's probably the easiest thing to track. It's in the name. But I think maybe like the more I play, the better I get. So the scoring, it all feels unique. It is like a fun puzzle. And overall, even though it is a lot, like this is definitely a bit of a teach. I think once you know what you're doing and you're getting into the flow, you're kind of understanding that like more soundtrack's good, more CGI's good, more different props are good, more rolls are good. So it's like kind of like more is just generally gooder. Oh my gosh. Higher numbers are just generally better. So even though there's like some nuance in the scoring, like you do understand like, oh, this card's just like generally better. And there's also like a fun puzzle to like match up the highest number in a row. So like if you draft a 10 or a 9, you're like, okay, I really want that movie to be the best. So yeah, so like I think there's like some fun levity. There's like a good use of theme. There's like definitely a lot of choices. It just know that it's like it definitely feels more like an auction game than a trick taking game, but still definitely there. Still trick taking is definitely there. I will say, and another thing is like all the player counts are pretty different. Like at 3 you take out certain cards, or at 5 you draft 2 of the lowest, or at 2 it's pretty different in and of itself. And like you just have there's a lot of like small bits. And I will say like there's a lot of like the start cards. I think they start the game off maybe in a more balanced way. But the fact that you have to like separate them out and like have them set up the game when instead of you could just have like 5 extra cards or something and like shuffle and just deal them. There's just like a lot of steps, or like, the fact that you're rolling a die to choose start player when it could just be the last person to see a movie. Like there's just a lot of parts to this game that I think could be maybe a little smoother. And that gets to the 2-player. So I'd recommend this at everything. Well, actually 5 was. I'd recommend like 3 or 4. 5 wasn't bad. You just get like maybe it's maybe harder to draft what you want just because there's so many people sometimes going in front of you. So like 3 or 4 maybe it's what it's at. But 2 was really tough because although I really like the hook of playing 2 cards in the trick, I love that. That's in Potato Man and some other games. I love that. That was actually really fun because that actually felt more trick taking. But then the scoring was tough because since there's not more than 2 players to do the soundtrack, you just roll the die. And was it more than one? Or like, a non-zero amount of 2-player games was decided on that die roll, and it felt bizarre because the game's very considered. There's a lot going on. Like the high numbers are good, but they have less symbols than the low numbers, or like even the fact that you have the start stuff and like the kind of pace of the game. And the fact that at 2 players you're playing 2 tricks and there's a lot of like balance and you're drafting and you're doing all this stuff at 2 to have it come down to like a die roll is so weird. It felt so wrong. So I wouldn't recommend it at 2. Just because there's that like one little bit of randomness. But without that, I think 2 was fun. So maybe like a house rule at 2. And then last thing to say is these bonus cards. It is funny because I think they're cool that you can like take them in your hand, or you can like move them into your tableau, or like move trump around. And that's a cool element. They do make the trick taking again like a little tactile because you're like from trick to trick, this trump suit can change. But I think there's a moment that I thought was really funny in teaching and playing and stuff, is that it also has the +3 cards. I can't find them right now. But in the bonuses, they have those cards that are like +3. And those feel like an additional like, oh, okay, like another thing. I guess it was like, in a game that already is like kitchen sinky, it's like, let's also put in the dishwasher because there's just like another element. But they are good. They're fine. It was just like another like, oh, and another new rule. But overall, I think it's a fun package. There's just a lot to go into it, but once you get playing, it's not too bad. It's relatively simple, and there's like a simple variant where all the things that I'm ranting about, you can just worry less, play the variant, you know, if you want like an intro game or a simpler game, and then afterward jump into the deep end. And honestly, like this is, even though there's like a lot of different scorings, it's kind of just like Sushi Go-ish, right? And they all make sense and they're all unique and fun. So I will say, if you're good with a little bit of a lot going on, if you're feeling for more of a kind of auction vibe in your trick-taking games, and if you want just like, it's a funny game as well, I think this is a cool one to check out. But definitely know going in that there's like a little bit of like fiddle surrounding it a bit. A little bit of like, oh, and there's this, and there's this. Like I remember we were playing at 5 and I was like, oh, right, the last person drafts bonus and the second to last person drafts bonus. So there's just like a little bit of fiddle around it. But cool stuff. Great times were had, and we made some really fun movies. Had a good time. So that is Rotisserie Tricken and MovieTricks. Some hoots, some halves, some goofs, some gaffs. Thanks so much for watching, and I will catch you on the next one. Bye!